If you want.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, great. Welcome, everyone. This is Green Renaissance Sovereign Rights Movement, and we are talking tonight about Balkanization. And we are very pleased to have two presidential candidates with us tonight. We have Davi and Emanuel Pastreich. And Davi is kind of new to Green Renaissance Sovereign Rights Movement, but Emanuel Pastreich has joined us on multiple meetings. We also have a candidate who has run for city council, and the Martha, jump in here, and the state assembly.
New York State Senate.
The state Senate. Thank you. I'm so sorry. And so we're really lucky. Our last meeting, we had a representative against the Senate in New York State. I mean, the United States, against Christian Gillibrand, which is Diane Sayre. So we've really had some really lovely guests. And tonight's topic is on balkanization and really what is balkanization? Well, balkanization is basically the disintegration of a entity. And it was basically done in the USSR under Gorbachev, where the USSR broke into multiple pieces. And understanding kind of what the ramifications of that are is that, we're stronger united and weaker divided. And, it's kind of obvious when you look at Ukraine and what happened there, and when you look at Yugoslavia and what happened there. And right now, what's going on in the United States is this kind of narrative that we're being fed that is a real blue versus red narrative. It's saying, and it's based on whatever you want to call people, whether you want to call them illegal aliens, whether you call them people without papers, whether you call them immigrants. These are people who are basically coming through the United States borders in droves. And I've been looking at the different, amounts of people who have been coming through. And really, in the last year, it's gone to, I think, 2 million from about 1 million. So it is quite a jump. But it's really been an increase over the last several years. So we might ask ourselves, why now is it such a polarizing issue? And, we look at the Biden administration and we see things, and then we look at the Republicans and we see a kind of a pushback against open borders. And the logic seems to lie, in my opinion, with the Republicans saying, you just can't have open borders. You have to have a process. You have to have a way of, treating people. You have to have a way of integrating them into society. And, one of my particular concerns is that people without papers, especially children without papers, are easily put into the sex trafficking trade. And right now, everyone will agree that there's 85,000 unidentified missing children. The Department of Homeland Security, who is supposed to be in charge of this, cannot find 85,000 children. So, there's a lot to be said. Where are these people? Where are these children? Are they in sex trafficking? Are they being organ harvested? Are they being in some underground economy? So it's a great concern, not only a concern to our people or our residents and our legal immigrants who are either impoverished or working class, or who are waiting online for social services and waiting online for medical treatment and things like that. So it's a huge burden to certain cities who really consider themselves sanctuary cities until the reality hit. And, that's kind of one thing. And then the other thing is this opportunity to kind of set up the backdrop for a civil war. To say, okay, we have the red states, we have the blue states, and to kind of look at them as an opposition force and the foundation for civil war. And what we found when we look at the USSR and we look at other things that have been kind of disintegrated or broken apart is that they are weaker and that they are easier to infiltrate, they are easier to manipulate, they're easier to take advantage of and to steal their resources from. And this is a pattern. So, you know, there's some people who are like, yeah, okay, you know, let's fight the Democrats, or yeah, let's fight the Republicans. And really all we're doing is shooting ourselves. It's a circular firing squad. So I have some things that we could look at. There's a couple of articles that have come out that kind of support my position, and we could go over a few things like that, and then I'd like to kind of turn it over to our presidential candidates and give them a chance to discuss this issue and some creative ideas they may have for you know, getting us out of this you know, circular firing squad and kind of moving forward to integration and collective action and unity and strength. Because that's really where we need to be, is in unity and strength, not shooting at each other over topics that they tell us we should be focused on. One of the key things that came to mind when I started researching this was Greg Abbott, who is the governor of Texas and who is kind of leading this march. And a lot of people have said, hey, you know, where have you been all these years, Greg Abbott? Why now is this a problem? You know, what's your timing on this? And there's a huge connection between Greg Abbott and the World Economic Forum. He was like rubbing elbows, shoulder to shoulder at Davos. So, you know, you kind of wonder, is this a false flag? Is this something that's really just there between Biden and Abbott, where they're just kind of setting us up for this false flag, so that they can kind of dissolve our country the same way Gorbachev, who I believe is a traitor to the Russian people, set up the USSR? You know, these are questions that are, you know, kind of worthy of asking. If I can get my emails to work and I can get the share screen to work for just a few moments, I'll just run you through a few things that I've pulled up, and then if I can't do that, then we'll just switch right to our candidates. And Martha, please.
Gloria,
Yes.
why don't we flip to the candidates, and then you can close the candidate presentations with the highlights that you wanted, unless the highlights that you want to feature are germane to immediately.
Yeah, I think they're germane. I'd like to give it a shot and see if I can pull it off. Okay, share screen, share sound. I'm not sure if I really need that.
Go for it.
Optimize for video clip. Okay, let's see if I can pull this off. Okay, so we're gonna share. Okay, so you see my screen. It looks nice, right? Okay, let's go into my emails. I'm going into my emails. Look at this. Okay. Photos for tonight's sharing. Look at this. Okay. I don't know if I want to do this one. Okay. Yeah, this is a good one. We could start here. Okay. So estimated number of illegal immigrants to the United States by country of origin. We see that Mexico is, you know, really the heavy hitter. Whoops. At 5,420.
Too fast. Yeah, can we just look at that a little bit?
Okay.
Instead of going back. Yeah, there we go. Thank you. And you said this is by the thousands.
Yeah,
Okay.
estimated number in thousands. Okay. And I just wanted to, you know, kind of look at this, you know, so we're talking about, you know, Bush was from 89 to 93. Clinton was from 93 to 2001. 2001 to 2009, 2009 to 17, to 17 to 21, to 21 to present. So, so we're going to actually jump here. This is the place where I want to be. Okay, so you can kind of see this pattern expanding. And this is, and the point I'm making here is that this pattern has been expanding under both Democratic and Republican administrations. Okay, this is not, as much as I can't stand Joe Biden personally. Oops, I can't get this to work. Stop that. Okay, as much as I personally can't stand Joe Biden, this is before Biden. Okay, and this is before Trump, and I have no love for either of them. And this is really a pattern that's been going on. And what else do we have here? Anything else? Let's see. We got we got Michael White. Okay, and then we have what's this?
So Gloria, Michael White ran for governor in I believe 2018, Green Party.
This is Michael White from
Wisconsin.
WPAI. Oh, this is your Michael White?
Yes, he's.
Oh, okay, great. Okay.
And he may not be as
Well,
radical as we are.
I just signed on as this Michael White.
No, this is my Michael White. This is WBAI. Okay, so let's look at a little bit of this footage. I'm going to skip
Hi,
ahead.
everybody. This is Linda with WGON News and Commentary. If you recall, I told you there's something wrong. I don't.
Yeah, this is the part I want to get you to.
What? Half a mile.
I'm going to go back a little bit.
They say all the activity is going on. Well, listen to this and you'll see what I'm saying.
No law enforcement whatsoever. Wow. What? Half a mile.
What's going on, guys? I know y'all come to my page because of the comedy and I just play around on here. And I don't get political very often. Sometimes I have some things to say about things. I live in Texas. I was just in Eagle Pass, and I've got some videos I need to show you guys. Because you're watching the news, whether it's CNN or Fox, you're letting these news media idiots get you riled up against each other. Let me show you some videos that might just calm your ass down and make you turn off the TV. Watch this. All right, so this is the wall, the fence that we put up. And they put up a secondary fence because they opened the gates. There's some armed guards with some pretty serious weaponry. Pretty intimidating, right? Here's your razor wire in between the two bridges that are in the entrances into Mexico and also the entrance to Eagle Pass. There's some Hummers, some more guys, right? We're protecting, we're keeping them out. This is 0.5 miles from that area. 0.5 miles from where they set up their cameras. 0.5 miles from where they have all the people there. And it's right down the road. I left this long to show you just how short of a drive it is for us to get to a point where all that we just saw does not matter. And they're just getting you riled up against each other because it's election time. And right about here is where you're going to see it. What's that? Where are the armed guards? Where are the AR-15s? Where's the razor wire? Where's the gates? That's half a mile from where the media is blowing up that Texas versus the feds, that we're having this big battle. So that was one gate. That was the very first gate that I saw. We drove down a little bit more. There's one. It had a chain on it. So you keep driving down the road. You got Trump's wall doing its job. This one has never even had a gate. So to me, doesn't matter if you're Republican, Democrat, liberal, libertarian. It doesn't matter what you are, and you're posting about this Texas versus the feds, and we could have a civil war. I'm telling you right now, if a civil war breaks out, it's not because there's something good to fight over. It's because it's election time. It is because the news media is corrupt and you need to turn the TV off. I don't care what news media you watch. Just go down there and look yourself. Go look. The things that they are saying that the feds and Texas are fighting about is a stretch that is not even a mile. How long is the border? They can just walk right over, and those gates keep going and going and going and going. I know you're thinking, well, just 2 gates. No, they're all open. Open all the gates. It's a whole hoopla over this little bitty section in Eagle Pass in between a bridge and a bridge. Only place that there's guards. So if you can't get in half a mile of our border, you just walk down the road and you go across the border there. All you folks posting about this,
In 2023, Repite. Ask me. Oh, permission. So that's what's going on. He's from the OIM. That's the United Nations out here giving all sorts of aid. And then you have illegal aliens from all over the world that are about to get onto boats and go into the jungle. This is what it looks like. Hey, China? You guys from China? Yes. Hey, ¿a dónde vas?
Hey.
¿A dónde vas?
Estados Unidos, brother.
Estados Unidos?
Brother.
Sí. ¿Qué país? No, ¿a dónde?
Aquí, Venezuela.
Venezuela. Vas a Estados Unidos. See? You from Venezuela? Venezuela? You go America? Yeah? After Nakokli, the next stop along the route is the Darien Gap, the lawless stretch of jungle connecting North and South America, where illegal aliens are frequently raped, robbed, or killed. The Darien Gap has 3 entry points: Akandi, Copper-Gana, and Querétaro. Unlike Akandi and Copper-Gana, which are in Colombia, Querétaro is in Panama. Illegal aliens are required to pay human smugglers for a boat ride in order to access this route. The Akandi and Copper-Gana routes, often chosen by poor illegal aliens, are notorious for incidents of violence and fatalities. Treks through these routes can last up to 5 days, and are done without much guided assistance. The Querétaro route, though still dangerous, offers a shorter journey of only 2 days, with guides leading aliens through the jungle. This reduces the risk of criminal encounters, but the added safety and smuggling fee to get from Colombia into Panama by boat make the Querétaro route more expensive. This route is preferred by wealthier special interest aliens, such as the Chinese. Querétaro itself is a primitive village, composed of simple huts, and is a community largely disconnected from the modern world. It serves as a landing point and staging place for illegal aliens before they enter the gap.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing and let everybody talk. Stop sharing. Okay, there we go. Okay, let me make everybody big. Okay, and I'm going to do the thing where we do spotlight. So
I'll take care of spotlight. Let's just, why don't you want to just go Emanuel and then Davi and then open it up?
Okay, that's fine.
Okay, so Emanuel, why don't you respond? How many, what are we looking at? How many, can you do like a 5-minute kind of thing? Okay, this, I think a 5-minute and then we'll just flip and then we'll open it up. And Emanuel, please share. What are your reflections on all that you've heard?
Well, I want to thank Gloria for organizing this event. And I want to welcome Davi and to tell him that though we haven't had a chance to meet before, I support his efforts and that we should be looking at this election, obviously, we're not going to have a legitimate president in the White House in November or next spring. So we should go forward with confidence, right? The fact that Davi or I are not on the ballot in every state, which is a corrupt process anyway, doesn't reduce our legitimacy. And regarding immigration, I started writing a speech on immigration and I stalled because it's just too much information and I didn't have time. But with your help, I would be happy to draft a speech on this specific topic because it's so serious. And I want to say that most likely we're looking at a series of psychological operations, many of which under Homeland Security, probably farmed out to various private contractors, are supposed to be, revealed to us in 50 years. But I'm not going to be around in 50 years. And the election and the crisis is right now. So I am perforce. I have no choice but to speculate about what's going on based upon my extensive experience. And what we're looking at is probably multiple levels, but at the one level, we have a long-term strategy to destroy the economy for ordinary people in the United States and to destroy labor. We, of course, have unions backing Biden, but the people backing Biden is its tiny elite who claim to represent labor, but don't even represent the people in their own unions, let alone working people. And so multinational investment banks, private equity have set the United States as a prime for exploitation opportunity. Of course, this is what the United States or multinational corporations have done using the U.S. previously, but now it's coming. The roosters are coming home to roost in the United States, which has now itself been targeted in this way. So what's most likely happening is we have people who really want to go to the United States to get out of their countries because their local economies have been destroyed by multinational corporations selling GMO foods, setting up Walmart-type operations that destroy small businesses, all basically by printing up fake money via the Federal Reserve or other central banks to finance these operations, which destroy local economies and force people to move to other countries. And the United States often, or is one of the places to go. So this is being done to make money by destroying local economies. This is true for Ukraine, for that matter, or many other countries, or for that matter, in the United States itself, where many local economies are being destroyed, essentially following the same game plan. At the same time, we have this psychological operation, and these two movies, which I think are a large part of this, the article, which I haven't read all of, but I saw in Global Research, talks a little bit about this predictive programming agenda. Started with the Obama movie called Leave the World Behind, which was released in November, and which puts forward this vision of a dystopian world in which essentially through hacking and these global elites take over the whole country so that you can't communicate, you can't get food, planes crash, etc. And the predictive programming part is to put forth a vision for this global takeover of the infrastructure and do it in a way in which the people are isolated as a family. They don't know what's going on, and never to show any images of people coming together, forming groups, organizing to resist, and being successful. So it's sort of it's putting forth through the media this vision of this takeover, which is, of course, what's exactly planned, but doing it in a way which inspires and encourages passivity, fear, and despair. And the other movie, which I haven't seen except the trailer, is Civil War, which is scheduled for, is it April, I think, or March? And this particular date has some historical, it's like the day of the founding the Gestapo, I think, but that it's being released on. But this movie presents this vision of civil war in which it's the different groups fighting against each other, and of course we're all going to kill each other. Obviously, this is perfect. It's probably what was demanded by the consulting firms and intelligence units for the billionaire class. Which, by the way, we shouldn't be too confused. There are two issues. There are billionaires and billionaire families who are fighting against each other for their own interests. And this is a real conflict. We should not make light of it. However, at the same time, there is class interest that these groups want to essentially move us, let's say, educated people who have some knowledge, are able to take action, understand how the world works, and to destroy intellectuals in the United States and around the world. Gaza is actually the model for this, because there you're actually just killing all intellectuals without hugger-mugger, without any hesitation. And my guess is that ultimately, of course, the border with Mexico in the United States, many of the same Israeli firms that handle the West Bank partitions and Gaza have the same contracts on the Mexican border. Same companies, in fact, and like companies like Black Cube, but there's a whole bunch of them, and they make a lot of money. They're essentially working on the same model. So I think, just to sum this up, to some degree, it follows the ideological decay of the Soviet Union and the Balkanization, how things were sold off. But I think it's been accelerated by new technologies and new strategies and a new massive concentration of wealth, so that the model going forward for Balkanization will ultimately be not what happened to Poland or Ukraine or other countries Hungary after the fall of the Soviet Union, but will be the Gaza model, which is to say, what is done in Gaza is what will be done, in Sioux Springs or in Akron or in Boulder next year. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you, Emanuel. And I know you're across the in Japan. And if you can stay on and participate in discussion, that'd be beautiful. Meanwhile, we understand you may have to peel off. Let's go straight to Davi, Gloria, and then we'll roll into John has stated he has a hand up. He has remarks to make about Balkanization. Davi, please, we're going to put the spotlight on.
Welcome, Davi.
Davi, please welcome. Yes.
Greetings to my fellow humans of New York and our great nation, America.
Greetings.
Greetings to the people. I am Davi. You can think of it as Dahvee. I am an artist, tech founder, and 2021 candidate for mayor of New York City and avatar of Earth. In 2020, in New York City, I vowed to ensure the sacred protection, harmony, and natural evolution of humanity and Earth. I'm running to earn your vote in 2024 as the President of America and leader of the free world. I am seeking the Green Party's presidential nomination and the endorsement of Green Renaissance. Thank you, Gloria, so much for setting this up and allowing myself and Emanuel to speak today. My areas of focus include rehabilitation and recycling, providing healing-oriented support for those ailing in body, mind, and/or behavior, finding harmony and balance between usage and contribution to Earth. The American Refresh, a 4-year transition where through paced collective voting, Americans vote for the exact government we want moving forward, intentionally managing the growth of technology. And finally, the mediator wing of the police, an emergency mediator wing of the police that on demand mediates tough situations and conversations without guns, batons, or slow court dates. I encourage you to read or listen to the full campaign plan at bydavi.com, también en español. The red and blue, election after election, have proven to the American voter their commitment to war and disaster, and their missing commitment to the core principles of humanity. and the preservation of Earth. But that is just a choice. We can make another. I'm here to present another way, another choice of vision called Earth Order. I'm going to explain the core points, and if you believe this would be better for the humans of America, you can agree by saying, indeed. You can come off of mute for a moment if you like. Earth Order is a new choice that offers direct democracy and an online voting system that allows us to ongoingly vote for the exact government that we want moving forward.
Indeed.
A new choice that provides equal salaries for chosen work.
Indeed.
Hey.
A new choice where all have access to quality housing through a housing exchange.
Indeed.
Yeah.
A new choice that covers all healthcare costs.
Yeah.
Now, I heard at least 4 indeeds. I
Indeed.
think that you should support what you have agreed is better for the humans of America. The things that you want for our American society, regardless of which candidate is presenting it. I hope that we as the Green Party can find pride in the fact that we are the non-corporate party who, because of that, have the opportunity to represent humanity authentically. I'm asking for your trust to lead so that we can lead together in 2024 toward a super and superb America. I look forward to your questions and thank you again.
Can you talk a little bit about the topic of tonight? You did great on a one-on-one.
Right. Okay, so, the topic of immigration is a complex issue that we have to approach with some sensitivity. So if you allow me, I'm going to give my statement on what I believe, right? And then I'm going to talk about what we can do, okay? So first off, immigration has many aspects to consider in reaction to the current problems and border overwhelm. Most importantly, most people are coming from countries that the United States of America's previous governments have had a direct hand in systematically disenfranchising through military and greedy corporate drug, oil, land, and animal operations. Proactively, however, I believe it is important to use this opportunity to not only support recent immigrants' transition and matriculation into the American workforce, but if indeed they want to return to their home countries with their families, Earth Order can be used to directly support their employment in their home country by supporting organic farming and reforestation projects that agree to hire those returning throughout the Caribbean, South and Central America. And specifically on our border, the focus of this campaign is making sure that we are pro-America, making sure that our military returns home and can actually patrol the border. I don't know how many of you know, there's only about 600 miles of the Texas border, right? And we have 837 military bases throughout the world, which means that if I took 10 soldiers from each one of those military bases and had them each focus on one particular mile of the border, we could have a border that ensures that those who are trying to illegally cross are caught and brought into the immigration centers where they can be correctly processed, which is their goal anyway, right? And on the proactive side, in terms of the internal working of America, we can actually agree to what our immigration flow is. Yes, there's these numbers, and yes, it seems like a big deal, but what is the actual number that we agree that our immigration flow should be? And then we can use that as our barometer as to whether we are completing that which we are agreeing to.
Thank you, Davi. Let's shift into some questions from the guest. John has his hand up. He's actually been thinking about balkanization. John, why don't you go ahead and respond? And we have special guests here. I definitely want to give the spotlight to Martha to reflect on this question. And I'd like to, I want to hear from John Spritzler because he has a unique perspective that I think is important that we pay some attention to. John, give us.
Also, Bernadine, aren't you in Texas?
And Bernadine, you're on the stack, Bernadine.
And Alma are in Texas.
So
yeah, because of me being in Texas, you have unique perspective.
Okay.
But I do want to address Gloria's first point, which is not so much about the border, although I think I'm in agreement with everybody else here that enough is enough. You know, there's got to be limits. But on the balkanization question, I think it's not a question of yes or no. We have to do a class analysis. There's times when it's progressive and there's times when it is not. In particular, like when the U.S. pressure was there to break up the Soviet Union, it was mixed because a lot of the people in those countries really did want to be free from Soviet domination. And with Yugoslavia, that clearly was another case of U.S. forcing the issue. That was reactionary pretty much on both those cases. On the other hand, if we go back to 1898, when Spain lost its empire and lost control of Philippines, Cuba, Puerto Rico, and Guam, that was the breaking up of the Spanish Empire. And we saw the same kind of thing with the British Empire after World War II. They lost India, which had been under their control. So those are positive things. So there's a lot of ways to look at this. As far as the U.S., I think it's good anytime you can break up a powerful empire into its component parts. Going back, of course, England and France and Spain have more or less glommed onto the U.S. empire. So that's a secondary issue to the fact that they have lost their own empires and became countries, which is what the U.S. ought to be someday. You know, strip the U.S. of its empire, as Davi just pointed out. There's over 800 bases all over the world, which no other country has anything remote like that. Not to mention the 118 in Hawaii, which literally is an independent country under 125 years of U.S. occupation. So that's another area. So I think of it as a positive if we can break up this empire and don't let them consolidate it, which is what they are now. They're very, focused, and they wouldn't have the resources to do all this damage that they've been doing. So that's what I had to say. But to take a class analysis of it, who benefits, who doesn't. When Africa, for example, all the African countries shed their colonial status to the Europeans, that was essentially a good thing. France lost Algeria and other countries to independence. When the liberation movements there in Africa and South America fought, it was on a class basis against the empire that had been dominating them for a century or two. So that's the positive aspect. But of course, then you had the neocolonialism, where you had the empire basically still pulling the strings of the local bourgeoisie. Class analysis again comes in. Okay, go ahead back. Chuck, you had a question.
Thank you, John. I'm setting the timer for 2 minutes, and and then you go over to no big deal. But just to be mindful of time, there's interesting things.
That's what I had to say.
Okay, John. I think that's. Thank you, John. I suggest let's if we could flip that to John's Spritzler, and then let's go to Martha so you can chime in on this balkanization question, and then I'd like to get Emanuel back in for a reflection on this John's remarks and what you hear from John Spritzler. John Spritzler, I'm going to put the clock up for 2 minutes. Give us what do you reflect on this balkanization? What's up? Go for it.
For me,
Martha, let's go to John, and then we're going to go to you. Okay, so just take, what are you thinking, John, from what you're hearing? Go for it. You're on the spotlight.
Thank you, Chuck. Well, first of all, I would just like to say that what John Olson just said about needing to take a class approach to this balkanization question is absolutely right. I could not agree more. And I thought he gave excellent examples to elucidate it. I'll give one more example just to drive the point home. Think about who was the greatest force against balkanization in human history. bar none, the greatest force against Balkanization was Genghis Khan, who created the largest land empire that has ever been created, not to mention impregnating more women by far than any man in human history has. So I make that point just to say that yeah, you know, being pro or anti-Balkanization is not the right framework. Now, on the other side of the coin, I advocate egalitarianism, in which local communities with their local assemblies of egalitarians, and only of egalitarians, are sovereign. So that's local sovereignty. But they form with voluntary federation as large a federation as they want, even globally large if they want. And probably they would tend to do something on that order. And so the local sovereignty is completely compatible with order on a huge scale, even a global scale. So the concept of Balkanization versus anti-Balkanization, it doesn't adapt itself to thinking about this from a class point of view. So I think that's my 2 minutes.
Yes, and you can, and you're welcome to chime in further. So but that's good. Let's, Martha, there's a lot on the table here, and what's your takeaway? And we recognize you as a true political animal on account that you've entered the field.
I'm not, well, I'm just a little bit confused about the terms in which we're discussing this. I mean, I thought when I'm thinking about the term Balkanization, I'm thinking in terms of the idea of this country breaking up, possibly violently.
Then why don't you speak to that concern? Because
Which is-
Gloria's nodding her head.
Martha, please.
Yes, yes. Develop that idea, Martha.
Yeah, well, I mean, I just want to point out that the question of our empire is I think connected, but not the same thing at all. And but I'm very concerned about I am concerned about it, about the whole idea of our being sold an idea that we are getting ready for a civil war. And I think that's not true, or wouldn't be true, but it's something that they're trying to build. And I look, I could have, I mean, I even thought at some point of moving out of the city because things were so bad in New York. And I know a lot of people who have or are still planning to. But I decided this is my home, and I'm going to make my stand on the issues that I think are important. But this whole migrant immigration, or whatever we want to call it, that is it is definitely having an effect on New York City. And but I personally just yesterday read an essay by Chris Bray on Substack. I don't know if anybody here reads his stuff. He writes very incisive essays on issues. He's a historian, and he cited some historical things in the past where there have been similar suggestions that there was going to be fights between the feds and the locals or whatever. And he made this a lovely sentence that I just love, where he said, it's not as if the New York State Border, that the United States Border Patrol, it travels from Brooklyn, which is where I live, every day to their job. These people when you get down to the nuts and bolts of individual Americans, they're not going to fight. And I saw that statement by the Border Patrol Union. I don't know how many of you saw it, saying we have no issue with with Governor Abbott or with the Texas National Guard. So I think I agree with the idea that Emanuel was saying, is this is a psyop. This is designed to try to get us to break apart, and they are going to do whatever they can to do it, and we mustn't let them. I think that that breaking apart this country can only weaken us. And, we'll always have our own regional differences and interests. But I mean, I agree with the 10th Amendment. I want states to have more have more control. I think that the federal government has gotten much too powerful. But aside from that, I do not want to see this country breaking apart.
Thank you, Martha.
Or not.
So, since Emmanuel's the furthest away, let's let him kind of swing back around and share a reflection on what he's hearing. There are a lot of pieces to the conversation. Emmanuel, why don't you take a couple minutes and kind of give us some way to think right now and reflect on what we've heard, and then you can raise your hand, you can say stack. Is balkanization really a threat? I mean, that's one question. Is the idea of balkanization the psyop also that's generating angst in the society? Emanuel, what are your thoughts? We're going to spotlight you.
Well, I really appreciate what John Martha said, and I basically agree. I mean, there are some subtle points about exactly who's doing what in this project, but I don't think there should be any doubt. The stress I put in my earlier comments was just on there's a book called the Palestine Experiment. I don't know if you're familiar with it. It talks about how the technologies and know-how being developed in the occupied territories in Israel, Palestine, are being sold in the United States and globally as a new means of technological control. And so that's the only part I want to really stress, is that it's not simply that the United States will be broken apart and we'll be played against each other so that the rich and powerful can be more rich and more powerful, but that what's being done to Gaza, they'll try and do it to us. So the conclusion from my point would be, I mean, I leave it to others better informed than myself about what's happening, but to say, I hope we can start coming together, Green Liberty and Green Renaissance and other like-minded people, because the next stage in this process is going to require us to be highly organized and effective, right? That in these future scenarios, we have to become a real organization. And that's going to require, we talked with Green Liberty. So I hope in the future we can focus on how to build substantial, powerful organizations. And as Martin Luther King, and he based this on, of course, others before, said, is that we have to have, going forward, the forces for peace and for justice have to be at least as brave, at least as well organized as those in the military and corporate world who are planning for our demise. It sounds somewhat contradictory, and it's that constant paradox we have of the sort of the military view, or the military culture, right? Because it's disgusting to us how the United States has been militarized, how our culture even for little boys and girls is now about the military, about liberals are praising that they're more women generals or African Americans as Secretary of Defense. And so that's grotesque. At the same time, we have to be as brave as soldiers in our willingness to go forward under extreme duress and attempts to manipulate us and to isolate us, because that's where the potential will be. The way we're going to break through and change America or the world is when we take a stand and say, we don't care. And that's what's really is so impressive about Green Renaissance, Green Liberty. You know, how isolated we are, how blocked out we are. We're going to stand for truth, stand for justice, stand for these issues which have been going on for centuries in the United States and, of course, globally for millennia. And we're going to take a stand. And when you take that stand, as Confucius said, my Chinese culture background, but he said, even, I'm paraphrasing, but basically, there's always going to be someone out there who's going to be sympathetic with your perspective. And that even includes within the bureaucrats in Homeland Security. But if you're not willing to take a stand, then you're not going to, you know, make waves, start to really change people's perceptions and actions. Thank you.
We have two hands up, and I just want to acknowledge that. We have Ohio Green Party, and I'm not sure who from the Ohio Green Party is going to speak. And we have Michael White, who is the chairman of WBAI radio station in New York City.
Well, let's go to Phileena. I think who got her hand up first? Phileena. Let's go to Phileena and then Michael.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm doing back-to-back meetings. It's great. I love this. Anyway. Okay, so right now, I need some clarifying questions from Davi because I just got done having my Ohio Green Party meeting, and the Youth Caucus of Ohio have voted down to endorsing Davi because of his stances on military intervention at the border. You know, right now that's against our platform in itself. You know, you don't close down over 800 bases and then say, and yeah, we need still those same people at our borders when I'm not sure if people are aware that it's part of our platform to close all our military bases so we wouldn't need our military at our borders, but I would like more clarification on this whole military thing at our borders. Like when we actually implement our platform, why would we need them there? So I'm need a little clarification.
Davi, you're put on point. Do you want to ask us? So could you reframe? Could you say the question explicitly that you want Davi to explain what, and then we'll put the spotlight on you, Davi. Phileena, what is the question exactly?
Having sending our military to our border to stop immigration is against our platform as Greens, and that was one of the main reasons why the Young Greens of Ohio decided not to endorse Davi for that. And since he did kind of repeat what they frowned upon earlier, I just need a clarification of why he feels we need military at our borders after you close down over 800 bases.
Okay.
Greens finally not.
We're going to give you 2 minutes, Davi. Give it a shot.
Okay, great. So I didn't say that I will be closing the borders. That's actually another candidate who said that. So I think that, I mean, I didn't say I'll be closing the military bases. I said that the focus will be returning to America. And in this particular session, I said, if 10 soldiers would come from each of those military bases, then that energy could be exerted at our borders. The Young Greens of Ohio also have no plan for how we'll be able to organize the immigration flow. So if they believe that we should just have open borders, then there is no, how do you know who to protect? How do you protect anybody if there's no borders, if there's no line to say, these are our people and these are the standards that our people experience? So I am fully willing to accept criticism. However, to rephrase what I said and change it so that it fits some anti-narrative so that somebody could not be pro me, that I don't know where that came from. But I would really appreciate a real conversation, because I've been trying to get in touch with the Ohio Greens for about a month now, and I haven't been able to get through, even though I did their presidential forum a month ago. So there's that piece. Secondly, I really want to focus on the Green Renaissance focus here today. So any questions you guys have regarding your particular platform, especially dealing with Balkanization and making sure that we have a stance within the world that is reflective of our actual viewpoints. That's the most important, and that's what Earth Order offers, a direct democracy system where everybody is able to vote. Hey, this is what we want to happen in Ukraine. Hey, this is what we want to happen in Iran. Hey, this is what we want to happen in the US.
Thank you, Davi. And let's just, so yes,
I just want
Felina.
to interject for just one moment. I just want to clarify, just, I really hear what, John Olson, who's one of our founding members for Green Renaissance, has said. And I just want to say there's a big difference between giving Hawaii its independence, which it deserves, and giving Puerto Rico its independence, which it deserves. And there's a big difference between having Texas secede from the Union. I mean, there's a huge difference there, in my mind. And there's a huge difference in having California or New York secede from the Union. I mean, I just have to say there's a difference here. And
agreed there's a difference, Gloria. However, I would still maintain that there's positive and negative aspects that not to rule it out. But yeah, definitely fully in agreement, Puerto Rico and Hawaii, and possibly Alaska if they want. That's another.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but can I say something on this? I mean,
Go for it, Emanuel.
Yeah. I mean, it's one thing to say we have decentralized local communities which build up the states and which have more autonomy, and that should not just be an issue for the United States, but globally. The other is to have something like California spin off, which has its own, military industrial complex, privatized police, privatized prisons, privatized military finance, secret government, secret governance, classified administration within the state. So if you have these things spin off, it's not like, oh, we're going to go back to, living in anarchist farm communities, right? We're going to have little Americas, sometimes with nuclear weapons, run using secret governance and the threat of force domestically. This is not positive.
I agree. And Michael White has his hand up, and he's been very patient. He doesn't jump in like the rest of us.
He's polite. Thank you, Michael. Please.
And Kay Williams also has her hand up too.
Kay's going to go next. Okay. Thank you all.
WBAI people. Okay, great.
So, I agree that we have a lot of divide and conquer operations going on, and that they're conducted in the form of PSYOPs operations. And that includes the kind of focus on, the way we've got this manufactured crisis about what's going on the border. And divide and conquer can go in different directions. I think when we're talking about Balkanization, we're talking about regional divide and conquer. It's not necessarily going to come that way in the name of quelling civil wars. One route that we may have see is martial law. I think there's been a lot of hints about going in the direction of martial law at least since 2016. And now there are new hints with the idea that, what would they do? Some form of modified martial law that they wouldn't even call martial law initially if Trump got reelected. The distinction between the country, which would be weakened. I mean, it's the country versus we've got nationalism versus a world government. In the terms of the distinction between the country breaking up and the empire losing its properties, that's different. And we were discussing empire in terms of all of these military bases we have around the world. We frequently refer to it as an American empire, but America has been sort of the vehicle for having an organized military ever since Great Britain stepped down, and after World War II, and the U.S. came in to fill that void. It's not really the American empire. It's on behalf of these corporations. So it's a question of whether the United States is going to keep working as a vehicle for financing the military, or whether the militaries that control the world, on behalf of the corporations, are going to be funded in some other fashion. As for balkanization, whether it's good or bad, an interesting part of the conversation, I'll refer you to Jane Jacobs after she moved to Canada from the United States, so her sons would not be drafted, became interested in the question of separation because of Quebec, and she wrote a book, one of her slimmer volumes, but it's very interesting. It influences some of her other work, called On Separation, where she talks about, it goes into the analyzing whether it's good or bad to have separation. It looks at what happened with Norway and Sweden, for example, separating. And I think on balance, she identifies a lot of positives to letting regions really be self-representing. So that's something it's not always a loss of strength, although it really is. I mean, there's very much a concern. I mean, the overall impetus right now is how, for corporate world governance, can national instincts and strengths be neutered, and so that's definitely something that's going on.
Thank you. Let's go to Kay, and then raise your hand, and we can kind of think about ending the recording and just opening it up into general discussion. Gloria, you're going to make that decision. But let's go to Kay. Please share. We'll put the spotlight on you.
Well, you all described yourselves as progressives and radicals, so I'll just tell you right out. I'm from Oklahoma. I live in Oklahoma. But just tell you a little bit about myself so you're not paralyzed by that thought. I went to NYU. I was at NYU SDS. I was a stone Marxist-Leninist when I lived in New York for 23 years of my most impressionable young adult life. Came back to take care of parents and stayed for economic reasons. Since I've been here, I'm wearing you can't see it, but stand up a little bit. Wearing my Joshua Harris Till t-shirt. I worked to try and get him elected as my representative. He was a Democrat. He was a cousin of Emmett Till. I'm sure some of you have heard of him. And I worked very hard for him, and we got 37% of the vote, which was pretty good considering Democrats are only 27% of the vote nowadays. But and the independents are rising. They're 17% of the vote. The interesting thing about being a progressive in a red state is you can vote however you want. It doesn't matter. So I can vote for whoever I want. I have an old habit of voting for the lesser of two evils all the time, but I'm considering breaking that habit one day. I find it interesting, a couple things that you said, the whole Balkanization idea and whether it goes in a positive or negative direction. And the idea that what we see on TV about the border is like staged, it's like manufactured. And that's kind of I'm glad to kind of think about that because I can now argue with people about that. But I just wanted to say I think that some of the things I don't want to get into is demonizing the wrong people for the wrong things, like Gorbachev. I think it was Reagan that basically caused the breakup of the Soviet Union. He bankrupted them. Maybe he tried to prevent a bloody civil war and he acquiesced in some things. But I'm not into demonizing people that might not deserve it. But on the other hand, I think this whole thing about the breakup of the United States, I think it actually will not come on state borders. It may not come even on regional borders. I think it's going to come with environmental disaster. And you should all be aware we have thousands of pipelines crossing America, of which 200 cross very big rivers. All we need is one good earthquake, volcano like Yellowstone, or a bunch of little earthquakes, and we will completely poison our freshwater system. And that will, of course, create chaos and a perfect excuse for martial law and different things. So that's, I think, what will most likely be the scenario. And it's one other thing that someone said about getting together and learning to make alliances. I mean, one of the things that this polarization is causing is amnesia for how to tolerate each other's differences, how to talk to each other, how to work together. And my grandfather was a Democrat, my grandfather was a Republican. They were married for 62 years, and that I don't think happens so much today. So I just think that that's also an important thing. And there was one other thing I wanted to say, but maybe it'll come back to me. That's it.
Thank you, Kay. John, I'm going to let you take over. Should we continue the recording?
Okay. I see Michael's hand. So I guess we go to Michael. Let me see who else might have a hand up. Now, is there anybody else that would like this? But we certainly need to talk to the people down there in Texas, Alma and Bernadine. So hopefully you will be able to contribute to this conversation. But right now we'll go to Michael White.
That was actually a legacy hand because I just spoke. I'm sorry. I didn't take it down, but
oh, you didn't take it down. Okay.
But it is going to be interesting to see where the military gets financed. If we dismantle the United States, and the United States has been an efficient way of having coordinated bases around the world, and we've got resources, including people resources, that we've been able to invest in the military. But as we export our base of economic infrastructure, how can we keep serving the corporations by providing all of those military operations from the United States? And if it's foreseeable that that's not going to go on, then what are they planning?
Yeah. Okay, that's yeah, a lot of things, as Dylan said, the answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind. There's a lot of things blowing in the wind. It's like a hurricane. So we don't know where it's going. But as I say, the 60s was the dress rehearsal for now. Let's see who else.
There's two hands. There's Bonnie, and then John has his hand.
Okay. Okay, because
Well, I guess let's go for 2 minutes.
in the chat, so I got to scroll across. So if I see if Bonnie wants to talk, please do.
Yes, Bonnie, go.
Let's see. Yeah, okay. Are you there?
Bonnie,
You're on
Bonnie,
mute, I guess,
let's
Bonnie.
come back to Bonnie. Let's go to John Spritzler and come back to Bonnie. Bonnie's muted. John, go ahead.
Okay. Could I have to?
Okay.
Could I have to scroll across the top to see whose hand is up? All right.
Am I on?
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah. I guess so. Then we'll go to Bonnie because she was on mute. So John, if you can be fairly short, and then we'll go to Bonnie. And we'll try to get
Okay.
everybody involved in the discussion. That's what I try to do here.
Okay, I would like to make this point. There is a point that unites almost all Americans on this issue. All the good Americans, all the ones except the evil ones with the real power. And that point of agreement is that our rulers should be stopped from doing things south of the border that force poor people to have to enter the United States just in order to survive. You will hardly find anybody, if you talk to random people on the street in any American city, who will disagree with that point. And that point is absolutely censored in the mass media. And that is why very few people even know that our rulers have been doing things to force these people to try to enter the United States just in order to survive. They don't know that. But when they do know it,
agreed, John.
they're united
These
in
horrible
wanting to
sanctions.
stop it. Yeah. We should make them know it.
These horrible sanctions. Yeah. The overthrow of their governments, like in Haiti.
Bernadine and Alma on the front lines in Texas, and Bernadine's been trying to.
Okay. I just wanted to comment. Yeah, the sanctions and the overthrow of governments. I just wanted to throw that in. But I don't see a hand up for Alma, but if you'd like to talk, or Bernadine, still they're on mute, so.
Bernadine put stack in the chat.
Oh, stack. Okay. By all means, go ahead, Bernadine. Thank you. There you are. Trying to keep up with that here.
Okay. Yeah, sorry about that. I can't figure out how to raise my hand on this laptop. Okay. In terms of balkanization, I can see a path towards secessionism. I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. Of course, Texas used to be the Republic of Texas, and before that, it was the state of Coahuila, Tejas. And of course, there was a Supreme Court ruling a million years ago, basically saying that even though Texas was a country that brought itself into the Union, once in the Union, you basically can't opt out. I personally feel that any state that wants to secede should be able to secede, regardless of if it's Texas or some other state. And then, the states could together, really focus on things like mutual defense. Is it too loud? Are there too many other sounds coming through?
Oh, it's perfect. Perfect.
Okay, good. Because it's kind of loud here. But I basically feel like the elites just see us all as either dead or as slaves. It's always been playing around in the back of my mind again that they're all just building us up towards a caste system or ready to enslave us. And they don't care what your race is because they're just so greedy. And the people have made it so easy for them to play us all off against each other. That's what I always constantly find disturbing. So people's lack of participating in civic affairs, but constantly complaining and not wanting to vote. Yeah, maybe the voting's rigged, but you have to show some level of engagement. So I find it disturbing that people just want to argue over silly shit all the time, complain all the time, but take no action. The level of apathy in our society, people have been made to feel powerless. They've been programmed to be that way. We are being corralled against each other, corralled based on fear, warmongering. The elites, in order to have their one world government, they can't have a country as strong as the US, so they had to take down the economy. But it should have been something that the people were prepared to fight against. But they still don't see it. And now fear just rules our world.
Do you see a bit of theater between Greg Abbott, who was at Davos and is lauded by the World Economic Forum, and Biden, who is basically their poster child, their senior poster child or senile poster child? Do you feel that this is almost a theater that we're watching? Or do you think that there's a sincere tension between Abbott and Biden?
Oh, I think yes. I always think that there's theater, especially when you're talking about Democrats versus Republican, because we know they're not real parties. They're just corporate parties that exist to preserve the illusion of choice for the masses while we get sucked in. That's why all you get in the media is, oh, it's a two-party system. You got Americans thinking that it's engraved and enshrined in the Constitution somewhere that it's a two-party country because they don't know history. They don't read. And also, your average American doesn't pay attention to what's happening in the schools, what their children are being taught. Honestly, thanks to COVID, that's the first time most Americans had a clue what the curriculum was in their school districts. And the fact that most Americans
Unintended consequences.
Right. The fact that most Americans are still upset that they were forced to spend 3 years with their kids at home and tackling their education. They forgot that they were supposed to be their child's primary educator in the first place. Anyhow, I'm just getting sidetracked there.
Okay.
But
I'd say unintended consequences.
Yeah, but any attempt to make us into a caste system, I see it in independent media that, the red flags are going up. So I hope more Americans are catching on that we're not supposed to be this divided and that we need to be talking about more issues of consequence. And that we can't spend all our time just.
Can we get your input on the border question since you're in Texas? We'd like to get some of that input from you, and then let's go afterwards to Tom Rodman, who's had his hand up for a while. But can you address the border issue?
Well, if there's a specific question, I'll be happy to answer it, but it's been an issue for decades here. So when it comes to people getting upset about it now in other states that aren't border states, people have been screaming from California, New Mexico, Texas, Arizona, and of course, the huge Canadian border is largely unguarded also. But I did like the video. I did like the video, Gloria. That was interesting, showing the gaps in there that are built in to these walls that they're putting up. But I can't say it's entirely a surprise. And I do wish Dee was on here because she's at Del Rio. And that's the one where, and a lot of this also depends on where the river is deep and where it isn't. Because there are so many places where you can walk across, some you can't. And some places there aren't safe to swim across. Somewhere along the border is a town that is buried, or rather, I should say, has been drowned. But you get to see parts of it when there's a drought. But that is where they have the openings in the wall like that. It's a huge problem. It's such a huge drain on resources, especially for the hospitals. So many of them have had to close down because they couldn't afford to keep their doors open. They weren't getting enough federal support. The state can't afford it when you have all the illegals that come in and they want to use the emergency room as their primary care provider. I mean, we have poor Americans that can't afford a primary care provider, and they also need to use the emergency rooms. But when you go and, people routinely have to spend half a day just waiting to be seen, but 70% of the waiting room is illegal, that's going to make people upset. Now, in the North, I've been seeing like Chicago, New York, that have been using gymnasiums to house the undocumented people that are arriving in their cities. And of course, I think it's Chicago where they wanted to take over an entire school to house the people that are coming up there now. And residents, they're rightly concerned about, well, what about my child's education? Why does their schooling have to take a backseat? Why does my child have to go to a different school? These are issues that people have a right to be concerned about. And of course, U.S. foreign policy. I mean, most of this is happening because most Americans have checked out of what the government does in terms of its foreign policy. I mean, honestly, for me, that's why it's such a shock that you have so many people stepping up for Palestine right now. Americans themselves are not barbarians. We are not of the warrior mindset. But unfortunately, the U.S. figured out that, the arms dealers, they figured out as long as they can keep these conflicts going on, they'll stay in business. And it's a huge boost to our economy. I mean, just like other countries, they use sex trafficking as part of their GDP. Well, we do that in the U.S. too, but it's for arms dealers. We don't talk about it, but how much money is being made by the military industrial complex? Most Americans don't even know that over 52% of the federal budget, the entire federal budget, is spent on the military.
Okay, with that, Bernadine, let's thank you very much. Appreciate the input. Let's go to Bonnie, who's been trying to get in, then to Tom, and then to Davi in that order. Can you hear us, Bonnie? Can you speak?
I finally got connected. I had to go out and come back in. But anyway, something Emanuel said made it just kind of click. I'm sure everybody's thought about this before, and I know I've discussed it a lot, but something clicked when he made it sound like, this Balkanization or dividing us up is part of the PSYOP or, some kind of attempt to divide and conquer us from within. And just the whole idea of all of these wars that are, these cooked up wars and, reasons to go into countries. And I'm not going to enumerate them, but it's I started thinking that this whole thing in the Middle East, and we all know, like, they want to go to war. They've had a plan for 20 years. I think Tucker Carlson said the other day they've had a plan for 20 years to go into Iran. So, you know, all of these different skirmishes in Yemen and everywhere that are all over the Middle East are just a precursor to this, lead up to this. You know, no, I'm not saying that maybe there's a way to stop it. You know, maybe can be stopped from continuing to escalate, but I just thought, you know, this isn't the people wanting this. This is WEF. You know, this is the globalists. You know, I always thought that term was not, you know, I never really understood that term to be like true until like lately, where I'm really starting to think. And I thought, well, Netanyahu, he must be part of the WEF and all that. And I haven't done a deep dive on it, but I looked him up, and of course he's listed under the WEF. So I'm sure he's part of the plan, because I really don't think the people, you know, how we get swept up. A lot of people I know got swept up into the whole Ukraine thing, and their, you know, the Russia versus the West and all of that. They really got swept up into being on the side of Zelensky and you know, and Biden and wanting to keep going with this war and more money going there. And so people do get swept up into this and they pick sides, but really the people are not the enemy. But these people that are at these levels of power are, but a lot of people don't see through the veil, and it's so obvious now. And this is just a personal thing, but maybe it explains to some people, because some people that I'm in an email group with, and some people on this discussion will know what I'm talking about. They use a term, and a lot of people use a term Zionist every minute with it's evil, it's, you know, equivalent to Nazis and all that stuff. And the Zionists, to me, are the people that settled in Israel. And then you say, well, that's not fair because they took away the Palestinian land. Well, that's kind of what human beings do, unfortunately, when they get out of control with power. And like the colonists took over from the Native Americans, and, you know, Genghis Khan marched across the continent, you know, and I'm not saying it's right or not. I mean, Israel was actually given to the settlers by an international group. You can think that's right or wrong, but, you know, the people are not the enemy. It's now it's taking place at a much higher level of power. And if people don't wake up, because I think Emanuel is calling for a movement, like, let's wake up and let's take our power back.
I think that is happening. I think we're getting there, but it's slower than we want. But I'd like to next go to
I'd like to share screen just to kind of piggyback on what Bonnie's saying, it's very, very short. And it's something that I think
short is okay.
Before. It's very short.
Okay, short is good. Then we go to Tom, and then Davi.
About 10 days after 9/11, I went through the Pentagon and I saw Secretary Rumsfeld, and one of the generals called me and he said, "Sir, you got to come in and talk to me a second." I said, "Well, you're too busy." He said, No. He says, "We've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq." I said, "We're going to war with Iraq? Why?" He said, "I don't know." He said, I guess they don't know what else to do. I said, well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda? He said, no. He says, there's nothing new that way. They just made the decision to go to war with Iraq. He said, I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we got a good military and we can take down governments. So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, are we still going to war with Iraq? And he said, oh, it's worse than that. He said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, this is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran. I said, is it classified? He said, yes, sir. I said, well, don't show it to me.
Okay, stop there.
Yes,
Okay,
okay.
I just
I
wanted
think
to,
a lot of us have
wanted
said
to
that.
put that on there. I know a lot of us have seen that, and you know, but
participating in today's hearing.
But-
Mr. Merchant of Tennessee, Ms. Luna of
what's going
Florida,
on here?
Mr. Getz of Florida, Mr. Burleson of Missouri, Mrs. Ocasio-Cortez of New York, and Mr. Ogles of Tennessee. Without objection, so
Yeah, I
ordered.
think that's you,
Today's
Gloria.
subcommittee
Runaway
hearing,
tab. I
both
think
the chair and
just
ranking
go to the
member will
next
have 10 minutes
thing
for
on the
opening
list.
remarks. We may both be giving some of those minutes to other members of our party. I'm now going to recognize myself
I can't
for
close
10
it.
minutes. I'm actually
Yeah, we could mute you.
I'll mute
Yeah.
me. I'll mute myself.
Yeah. Let's mute that. Tom. Yeah, okay. Tom, go ahead.
Okay, well, yeah, I apologize because I misidentified. I've been doing back-to-back meetings, and maybe just briefly I can explain a couple of incredible meetings, and it relates in the sense that this strong narrative in a bizarre direction, you know, like that thing that was just presented there from is that Clark or whoever. A woman came on today and said, basically, this PhD from Germany, that, you know, if one of my students designed the spike protein, they would flunk the course. That it's not difficult. It's all 1990s technology. She went through this detailed lecture on how she could evolve it using 2 different types of evolution, and it just doesn't make any sense to her. And then after that, I got clued into another Zoom with Steve Kirsch and Denny Rancourt, and Rancourt is basically saying there's no evidence of spread. And so basically that this COVID thing was an incredible psyop. That's not to say there is no SARS-CoV-2. I'm not saying that. It's just that it doesn't have the capability to spread worldwide the way they say. But the reason to address this thing of division and civil war, I listened to a series of podcasts out of Australia, and they're dealing with this immigration thing in Europe. And these are a mixture of left and right wing. There's a left wing host there, Misty Winston, and then sort of a conservative would be Matthew Arite from Canada, very bright guy, really interesting. But they have hosts, another one's from South Africa. It's a good PNT radio. It's worth checking out. Anyhow, when they talk about Europe, they're talking about these draft age young single men coming in like to the UK, you know, tens of thousands of them. And I don't know this story about hotels. It's not my main issue, but in some country, these guys are getting put up in hotels, and then the local, okay. And then the local people are complaining, and then all they do is they just shift them from one hotel to another. And yeah, so we're paying for it. And the other thing I'm hearing is that there's a roadmap, like a immigrant how to, just step by step, how to get into the US and which country in Latin
Exactly.
America, so forth, so on. So this seems
And busloads of Chinese men are coming up through that path too, up to the border. It's all choreographed. A lot of the motels are actually written in Chinese and they're signed inside.
So it seems like some
it's a very suspicious things happening.
And then these right wingers talk about, this is a separate issue, but they talk about the policy Because I remember one of the first demonstrations after Trump got elected that that I observed in Milwaukee was about the children in cages. And it turns out that policy was an Obama policy from what my right-wing people tell, I don't know. It's just a podcast. I don't know if it's true or not, but yeah, so it just appears to be another thing coming out of left field. Why is this all of a sudden happening? And I don't buy the fact that it's just because of yes, we did persecute people in Latin America, but the volume seems, and the fact that it's happening worldwide, so I haven't, that's it. I haven't, it's just a mystery. I haven't dove into it. Pass.
Okay, Tom, let me wind that up if you can. I think that's been near 2 minutes, and let me go to Davi and then Martha and Bonnie. Do you still have your hand up? If you're finished, then you could put it down. If you want to talk again, you can leave it up. Davi, you're on.
Great. So I just want to, this conversation is kind of a mix of a lot of different things. So I just want to, and I appreciate Gloria for bringing this on, but usually we have a conversation about the presidential candidate and then conversation about other things. So I just want to make a clear point about solutions, okay? What is the solution? What is your goal for society? If equality and democracy are the solutions, then that's what we should be looking at in a presidential candidate and in our conversations. Some things are bigger than money, politics, and pessimism. We are not audience or spectators. This is our lives. We have to stop talking and promoting things that do not fulfill us. We have to be the solutions and get into action. The red and the blue are doing things we disagree with, yes, but at least they focus on their leader. If there are questions about my leadership, Emanuel's leadership, let's confront them now. But we have to be the ones to focus the conversation on what we want rather than what we don't. There was a concerted effort to convince me that equality has no value in this world. Most of you are part of it. It's just the autopilot of a society that has never experienced equality. This concerted effort is just an effort. It's not the truth. It's up to you to disprove. We have to stand in the truth of equality and harmony in society. It's up to you to declare and explain that what equality is valuable to us. Furthermore, we have the chance to shift this nation in this year if we can focus on the words that actually move us forward rather than advertising and commiserating about the things that we don't. So I ask you once again to, number one, please consider my actual question at the beginning of my talk, which was, what do you need to endorse myself as your presidential candidate for the Green Renaissance? And then two, what does the Green Party need to do in terms of our thinking in order to get to the next step of not just being the great articulators of the problem, but the great articulators of the solution?
Martha, you're on. You're on mute.
No,
Martha.
I took myself off. I'm sorry. I just wanted to sort of reinforce what Tom was saying and point out that in New York, and somebody mentioned something about schools. We actually have a school in Brooklyn where parents were told, like, a couple of days, with just a couple of days notice, or maybe just one day notice, that their kids were going to be stay at home and have online school because the school was going to be taken over by migrants. We have parks being taken over. We have hotels. I mean, Manhattan, there's hardly any hotel space. And these hotels are absolutely trashed. They're really trashed. I mean, I have friends who live near them and near some of these hotels. And they They see what's happening. So this is a very real thing. I mean, I just want to clarify that when I was talking about a PSYOP, I didn't mean a PSYOP on the order of COVID, where we had, I mean a PSYOP on the sense that we're being manipulated emotionally, and the whole question of what the solutions are, or who is against whom, and this attempt to it's just another way to get us at each other's throats. But my feeling is we can be upset, and justly so, about American foreign policy and geopolitics. And that's something that should be addressed. But and of course the two are related. But right now, this is a humanitarian crisis, not just for us, but for the people who are being trafficked. Their children being trafficked.
Missing.
Yeah, that are being trafficked for God knows what. I mean, I have seen videos of things that are going on, and with the children are being brought. I understand that when children come in, they come in with a little thing on with a name. Nobody does. I mean, there've been whistleblowers saying that nobody vets when they try to people who work with immigration. We're trying to vet these people, and they were not allowed to. So some guy will come and pick up like 3 or 4 kids, toddlers, and just say, okay, and just nobody asks them any questions. This is human trafficking. We have human trafficking, and the whole question of the a military age young men. I mean, we saw the video that Gloria was showing of all of these young Chinese men. Now, whatever you want to say about what we're doing in South America, or what we're doing even in Africa, because we've got a lot of people coming in from Africa too. New York has a lot of people coming in from Africa. How are they getting here? Well, I have a friend who has been asking questions. She sees them on the subway. She talks to them. Oh, we took a plane to somewhere in Central America, and then we went up to across the border. So this is not, and she said, how many of you are there? A lot of you? He said, not yet, but there will be. So this is and what's going on in Europe, as you mentioned, Tom, the things that are going on in Europe. This is a very carefully orchestrated process. And if we let ourselves get sort of into the la land of ideal, stuff about anti-imperialism and everything, sure, the United States has a lot to answer for a lot of the awful things we've done. But right now, we need to have a border if we're going to be a country. If we decide we want to go the globalist route with WEF and WHO and the United Nations and give up all of our national sovereignty, okay, that's your decision, but I don't want to do that. And I think we have to consider that if we're going to be a country, we have to have a border that is controlled. And as soon as if we can't be together on that, that's exactly what they don't want. That's exactly what they want us.
I think pretty much across the board, people would agree it's a question of how to do that, both organizationally and humanely as well. Because as you say, there's a lot of terrible things going on, particularly with the children that we don't know, and women that come across that are sometimes have terrible circumstances they're fleeing from. So what we need is a lot of people to screen, the people that are trained, and then the ones that are deemed that don't have valid reasons, okay, back they go. And it's been suggested maybe give people a free airplane trip back to their home countries that'd be worth it rather than having to take care of them for, you know, how many years, and then have them, you know, dilute what it is that we have in common. I think Bonnie wants to comment again. Hand up.
I just want to jump in for 1 second. I want to respect Davi's point, and I just want to
Yeah.
say, Davi, are you there? We lose him?
I'm here. I'm here.
Yeah, one thing I just wanted to say is one of the things we've wrestled with as Green Renaissance and Green Liberty, you know, we're a collection of groups. One of the things that we wrestle with is this concept of how much time do we devote to education as to what the issues are, and how much time do we devote to what the solutions are. And that has always been kind of a debate within us. And in particular, we have a very strong advocate who is a founding member, Robert Shields from Alaska. And he really wants us to focus more on, you know, ways that we can feed ourselves, ways that we can be independent, ways that we can do all of these things. And, you know, it's really important to have two hands. Okay. One hand that is looking at what is going on and being alert, and the other hand is looking for solutions. And what I would like to say about Green Renaissance in particular is that we have two hands and we're looking at both. And we give some time to solutions and we give some times to educating ourselves as to what are the latest psyops, so that we can free our minds and free ourselves to focus on solutions. Because otherwise, all we are is jumping from crisis to crisis to crisis. And that is what they want. They do not want us to stand back, take a breath, and understand. They want us to hate Israelis. They want us to hate Palestinians and Muslims. They want us to hate the aliens who are coming across the border, who are just basically trying to find a new life for themselves. They want to pit the illegal aliens against the impoverished who are US citizens and US residents, so that they're hating on each other when they're standing online to get medical benefits or food. So you know, so understanding these narratives is very important, because when you understand the narrative, you can understand you're being played, and you can understand that we are all united. So that one of the key things is to understand that we don't really have differences except class differences. And that's something that John Spritzler speaks very much about, are class differences. And in all of these situations, it is a class difference. The elite or the predator class is here, and all of the rest of us are united and here. And what they are trying to do is break us and fragment us and put us against each other. And we refuse to do it. And I think everyone, a member of Green Renaissance and Green Liberty, refuses to buy that psyop. And that is
okay. Well stated. Well stated, Gloria.
We want to get that message out to everyone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, well stated. I think we're in agreement with that. Bonnie, and then let me see who else will be on. And Bonnie, did you want to talk?
Yes.
Let me see who else.
I do. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, just riffing off of what Gloria was saying, you know, during the 60s, I think we had a pretty, having been young but lived through that era, I think we had a pretty good combination of different efforts for civil rights, for anti-war, and other issues that were not working completely separately, and they weren't just picking like a certain target and just shooting at that target. the groups were coordinated and they were putting a very, solidified kind of effort towards, tearing down some of these, institutions of things that were going on. Unfortunately, it didn't keep going on that level. But we need people that are going to go after certain issues, like I think what Martha's saying, like, let's not talk about the big picture. Let's just pick a target and go after that. We need you and people to do those things, but we also need to have a broader picture. The word is going to get out now because they can't stop the word from getting out because we've got the internet. We've got all these people speaking that have a voice, and everybody can have some voice. They want us, the people that are trying to get all the power and money and control, want us to be, they want all these different target issues to be separate, because that's how they can diminish it. They can diminish each one. So I think if we do have a big coordinated effort to do something, or all the groups can join together to do things, it's going to have a lot more power and influence. And I wanted to say something about what Tom was saying, and also Martha, about people coming over the border. We all know the terrible things that are happening as a result. My relatives came over here, but they had to do it in a structured way and go through Ellis Island and all that stuff. What happened to immigration policy? There has to be. Something like this has never happened that I know of. So, except for maybe when people came over in boats at the very beginning, before there was a United States. So why is this happening? This is really what, I'm trying to figure out. I know they want to conscript people into the army by promising them citizenships. They want to conscript people into the police because that's so problematic. And, what is the other reason? Is it to break us apart? They can maybe use these people as military or police to do their bidding more easily. They can, there's, just one factoid is that I heard in Chicago that it's costing them $7,000 a month per immigrant to, take care of their basic needs. Like, that's more than anybody here is getting for like their salaries even. So what is the purpose? What is the purpose of what they're doing? I think that's a really important question. Unfortunately, these people are steps ahead of us in terms of their planning process. We're trying to catch up. Like, gee, 9/11 happened. Hey, how did that happen? I don't want to keep going on, so I'll just.
Okay, yeah, that's a lot of we got more questions than we have answers, and that's what Bernadine was asking. What is it that we want to do? So I'm going to go on to Judy and then Kay, and if anybody has ideas of how we solve the problem, that will be helpful to address Bernadine's question. But whatever you want to say, go ahead, Judy, and then Kay.
Okay. Well, I wanted to say that I agree with Martha and with what Bonnie just said. And I think that this whole Texas, the whole hullabaloo in Texas is kind of a diversion. And I think that they are trying to draw off the right-wing vote, which is an anti-government vote, and from the things that we complain about that the government does, to something that is not very consequential. And so when my grandparents and my father came to America, yeah, there was a system. And the reason that there were so many immigrants and the reason it was handled fairly well was because they were attracting laborers, workers, and why are these people being supported now by the government rather than going into some kind of work? And or are they going into work? It's not clear to me exactly what is happening to them once they get into the country, because traditionally the Hispanic migration was fueled by agricultural need and things in the food industry like slaughterhouses and so forth. But I don't know what is drawing these people here other than the need to escape from their countries. I also don't know what percentage of them are refugees rather than people that are just seeking to improve their economic situation. And as far as being a burden on the country, I'm entirely convinced that it's due to poor management. And the United States only has 4% of the world's population. And other countries, like, for instance, Turkey, is absorbing this enormous amount of Syrian immigrants from the United States regime change wars. And so are many other countries. And France is getting blowback from Algeria. And it's basically colonialism, blowback, regime change wars, and messing in other countries' economies so that they remain poor. And if they don't want to stay poor, well, then they come up here. Unfortunately, this country is not set up to absorb them, or at least I don't see that it is at this point. But I think that it could be, and we have plenty of room. We have look at. I mean, they could all go to Wyoming, but
A lot of farmland up there.
I just want to respond briefly to Bernadine's question. And
wait a second. Let me finish.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. So as far as balkanization goes, I think that that the United States, I don't know, I think the United States is being taken down as a hegemon. But I'm not entirely clear what exactly is going on. I have been told by people that know a lot that the United States is unsuited to be the leader of the fourth industrial revolution, because we're very messy. We're not all obedient, and things are kind of sloppy. So they're looking to places like China.
Okay, I just wanted to respond really quickly to Bernadine. One thing, and also this is to Davi, one thing that happens to not-for-profits is something called mission creep, okay? And I want to be really precise as to what Green Renaissance Sovereign Rights Movement's mission is, okay? We're not here to save the world. We're not doing that right now. What we're doing is we're using our resources to educate elected officials, candidates, and political parties on issues of concern to keep us all alive and free. That is our mission. Now, there's no other mission there. Everything else is mission creep. Okay, yeah, I'd love to save the world. I'd love to, organize all kinds of fantastic things, but our mission is to educate elected officials, candidates, and political parties on issues of concern to keep us all alive and free. Very specific.
Excellent. Yeah, I think that's very good. Good you brought that up. Thank you. Kay, you're on.
I just wanted to reflect on the scope of the problem in the light of class struggle ideas. As I understand it from the statistics, and I may be wrong about some of them, we've gone up from 1 million immigrants in 2018 to now 2 million immigrants. That sounds like a big increase. But it's actually a drop in the bucket when you consider that 3.5 billion people around the world are living in abject poverty and making less than $2 a day. And what created that situation? And when you look at like the wealth gap that started under Reagan and is now the population, you see the population curve is like a golf iron. Well, the wealth gap is another golf iron graph going up. I think we need a new class struggle summary. We need a new class struggle analysis. I don't think Karl Marx, he was very smart and he envisioned a lot, but I don't think he even envisioned the degree of income gap that exists now, and the power at the top of this income gap is just
Century income gap is much greater.
Okay.
I think Karl Marx's greatest strength was critical analysis, not solutions. Thank you.
Okay, well, we've been on for 2 hours. Can we begin to wind up, folks? Or,
Can we stop the recording? Have we stopped?
It's been a good discussion.
Can we talk about Israel and Gaza?
I think we should stop the recording. Stop. Are we still recording, or was it stopped?
You stopped it?
It says it's being recorded now, but that came way late. When we were about halfway through the meeting or more, it said you're being recorded. So I don't know when it began.
Recording. Okay, so let's see if we could end the recording. I don't know how to do that. Okay.